The Mavic 3 is now 1 year old, and with its birthday, DJI have decided to treat us to another Mavic 3, the Mavic 3 Classic. And with that Mavic 3 Classic, we got a new firmware update for the entire Mavic 3 range. Now that firmware update has some huge new features which are incredibly exciting. In fact, there are about 4 of them which I'm particularly excited about and I want to talk to you about briefly in this video, but also in a series of videos I'll be releasing soon. So rather than talk about it today, let's take off together and let's have a look at them. One second. We'll speed this up. Now, let's take off. Okay, so for this low light test, I have chosen one of my other favorite low light locations, which is actually not that lit up. So it'll be a good test of it because you see people take videos in low light in big cities which have a lot of ambient lighting, so it's not really the best demonstration. This one should really show what the new features can do. So I'm just going to bring it down. Okay, so the first feature I wanted to talk about is the new night shooting mode, which is basically accessible if you go down to your video settings and you see this new symbol called night with a little moon in it. Click on that, and basically what you'll get is you will get a whopping maximum ISO setting of 12,800. So normally limited to 6,400, you can now get 12,800. Along with that, there's going to be some image processing, probably some noise reduction, and maybe some boosted shadows. Various things happening which will make the image look more lit up. Just bear in mind that that kind of image enhancement can come at a cost of lost details. So it's not always as good as it might seem on paper, but some people like it. Whether those trade-offs are worth it is another matter to be discussed, and a video that I will be putting out at a later stage. But at this stage I'm just going to have a brief look at it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a few bits of test footage. First one, I will go down to normal mode and set it pretty much to let's use ISO 3200, which is actually already higher than I'd normally go. I think ISO 1600 is pretty much at the edge of the sort of noise levels which we can accept, but let's do ISO 3200, and I'm going to shoot in 4K 30 frames per second, which is the limit of the night modes to keep it fair. Normal picture profile because we don't have any other choices in night mode, and white balance set to manual. So I'm just going to do a very simple pass of this lighthouse in cine mode. And here we go. One little tip, when you shoot in low light conditions like this, set your focus to manual focus, because this drone in low light conditions, especially with the telephoto mode, which I'm not using yet, but generally it does have a tendency to focus breathe a bit, so it's generally best to switch it to autofocus, to manual focus. So now I'm going to switch it to night mode and match the ISO settings, so it'll be a fair comparison. So I'm going to match the same ISO as before, and basically this is just going to look at the image processing that's happening, because we're using the same ISO, same settings as before, just the only difference being the night mode. So if we click on this, we can see that there's only one resolution and frames per second option, 30 frames per second, 4K, and we also only have normal color profile. So I'm going to repeat the same thing again, and I'll speed it up for the benefit of you guys watching. Now you might have noticed that my focus is back to autofocus. I did get away with that last one, fortunately. The lesson learned here is that when you switch from one mode to the next, bear in mind that your focus settings will go back to whatever it was set to previously. So obviously if I went back to normal mode, I would be set to manual focus. If I go into night mode, I need to manually make sure that that focus is set to manual focus again. Oh, we had some lightning in the background, nice. Okay, so before that reaches us and we get drenched in rain, I'm going to do the high ISO. So I'm going to set it to ISO 12,800. Go look at that, that's completely lit up now. So that's almost too bright, but okay, we'll do a little test shot of that. So you can also already tell that just by the lack of noise, there must be a lot of processing happening there, but let's take that shot. Okay, and I always like to compare images side by side, so to make that simpler and to make it a proper fair comparison, I'm just going to take some static images, static videos of this angle here. So now I've had a look at the nighttime mode, I'm going to look at the next thing which is quite interesting, and that's the ability to change your maximum speed settings for each mode. Now, with the emergence of the Mavic 3 and the DJI Fly app, we lost the ability to have a tripod mode. Tripod mode was very popular because it allows you to do very slow footage, very slow movements, very good control, especially when you're close to, when you're in close proximity to objects. Senior mode, which we were giving in its place, would only allow you to go down to 5 meters per second, which is a bit too fast for most. So what we can do now is we can actually change the speed settings for each mode, and in order to do that, all we need to do is go to the menu, click on Control, go to Gain and Expo, Tuning, and what you've now got is you've got individual speed settings for horizontal, ascent and descent. Now here's a really important thing that I've noticed. With the current firmware that we're using, I found that these settings can reset themselves after each time you switch the drone off. I don't know if that's intentional or not, but it's just worth bearing in mind that when you turn the drone on again, until that bug is fixed, you might want to just check your settings and make sure that it's to whatever you've set it to before. So this one is set at 18 kilometers an hour. We can now dial that all the way down to 3.6 kilometers an hour, which is the equivalent of 1 meter per second. So that's basically what tripod mode used to be. The senior mode that we were given instead of it initially was about 5 meters per second, which most of us felt was a bit too fast. So now that I've set my senior mode to a maximum of 1 meter per second, I can do lovely slow movements like this. So I'm actually pushing full deflection on my pitch stick. So I'm full forward, and this is as fast as it'll go. And that's a lovely new addition, that. The other thing, talking about control of your drone, that has just been introduced is something called cruise control, which initially I was a bit skeptical about whether I'd like it, whether it's that useful, but it's actually very, very smart. So what we can now do is go down in the menu, go to button customization, and we can assign one of our C1 or C2 buttons to cruise control by clicking on this drop down, click on cruise control, go back, and now basically any movement that we put on the sticks, if we press C2 or whatever button you've assigned to it, it'll then keep that control input until you press that button again or cancel cruise control. So for example, if I go forward a bit more, I'm just going to go back to normal mode. Right. So I'm going to do I'm basically going to pull back on the stick and press C2 and let go of the sticks, and I'm now on cruise control. That drone's going to continue that movement indefinitely. And that's really nifty. And what you can also do is you can input controls on top of this. I'm going to add a bit of yaw to it if I want to. Just the same way that you might in a car decide you want to add a bit of speed or use the brakes. If you're in cruise control, you can do the same with this. Then press the whatever button you've assigned to cruise control again to cancel it. And we're back in manual mode. So the fact that you can mix different control inputs and then have those set in cruise control is really nifty. So you can even include yaw and throttle. So if I have something a bit more complex, like say I'm flying forwards, a bit of yaw and a bit of throttle, a little bit of altitude. And I'm now doing this slightly more complex movement where I'm flying forward, a bit of yaw, and I'm gaining altitude as well. So one of the things that I like to use the telephoto lens for is for something called a parallax. So basically what you do is you fly quite far away from your subject. You use the telephoto to focus in on that subject, and then do an orbit around that, which compresses the background and gives you a very nice dramatic effect. The downside of that is it is quite difficult to master. You need to be quite confident on the sticks. It's something that doesn't always work particularly well. Now with the new firmware update, what we can now do is we can go to our telephoto mode, and we need to fly quite far away from the subject. And again, it's really important to make sure that your focus is set to infinity. Right, and we can now select the subject. And to do a parallax, just do a point of interest like that. So it seems to be struggling to select it. I'm going to try it one more time. Let's go. Hopefully we can do a parallax around that lighthouse. A bit like that, which is, it's struggling, it's low light, so something worth bearing in mind. These things work better in better lighting, but you can sort of see the effect. It's a nice effect when it works. So there you go. Parallaxes are now available for everyone. Even if you're quite new to drones, you should be able to master this and get some pretty cool videos. Oh, come on. There we go. So that wraps up my quick review of the 4 features I'm the most excited about. I'm sure you'll agree they are pretty much a game changer as far as the Mavic 3 is concerned, regardless whether you've got the classic, the standard, or the Cine version. I look forward to talking to you about more about those features. But for now, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed my content, and I'll see you soon.